All right, so we're talking with Zane Pucylowski, and he's a dad, a CEO, founder, an engineer for a couple of decades, if I'm correct. And you founded Phoenix Engineering. He owns a marketing agency. I'm going to kind of kick things off with a kind of a story-based question. Tell me about the soap company that you bought for your son to run.
That's a great story. So I appreciate you having me on, Patrick. Love your channel, all the stuff that you're doing. So happy to help you in any way that I can. That's an interesting one. So I was kind of working the corporate gig. I grew up. My dad built houses, so I grew up in a small business. I watched the struggle. I watched all the things that went on. I wasn't sure if that was the path I wanted to go. I thought maybe I wanted to work in a bigger company and work my way up and be amazing there and those kind of things. And I had kind of done those things and got in political battles and all kinds of things in a couple of companies. And I was working for a particular company trying to figure out if I wanted to go out on my own, what I wanted to do, what my future was going to be. And I just found Rich Dad, Poor Dad, found a couple of books that were similar, ended up on this thing called the FastlaneForum.com, MJ DeMarco, his books, those kind of things. And I was really digging into entrepreneurship and, hey, did I want to go that route and what did I need to do? Well, my young son comes in one day and he's like, hey, Dad, I want to buy this, Monsters Super Chief Techno thing. And I was like, that's cool. Well, how much does it cost? Oh, it's $225. Okay. Well, if I had brought something like that to my dad when I was growing up, I'd immediately gotten my tail whipped, right? Like, that's ridiculous. But I thought, wait a minute. What if I do something different? What if I go, okay, that seems like a good bit of money. How can we make $225? And interestingly, I think that evening I was on this forum and somebody said, hey, I've got this little company I set up. I've done everything I want to do with it. I'm going to get rid of it. Does anybody want to buy it? And I'm like, sure, I want to buy it. And it ends up being Santa Monica Soap Company. And it was super cool because I was trying to figure out Amazon and FBA and all those kind of things at the time. And here was this opportunity with my kids here's an opportunity for us to create value. Because I had decided early with my kids, there would never be an allowance. There would never be, I'm just going to give you money. I never wanted them to trade their time for money. That was kind of a big thing for me. I wanted them to trade their value and create value for other people. So for instance, with that, they always had chores and things because you have to help your family first and you don't get money for that, right? And then if you want money, you've got to create some value. You've got to do something. You got to sell something. You got to create some value in the world. So here was this cool opportunity. And, come to be announced, it turned out really well. I mean, these kids were making, 100 and 125K a year. They were stacking bank. My kids suddenly have tons of money in their pocket.
These kids, meaning your kids.
Correct. I set it all up. I kind of got it going, but I let them do all the work. They brought in the product. They broke it up. They cured it. They labeled it. They packaged it. It was kind of cool. I'm an engineer, so I set up a little assembly line for them. And within like 5 minutes, my young kid had completely changed it and was getting out like 3 times as much product in the same amount of time. So
they were really moving the soap. That's too good.
Such a great lesson. There were so many cool routes that we could go from this. I do have one really cool story just to help with the dad part of this, Patrick. So my youngest, he's been working for a little while. He's got the company going. We're shipping out product. We're putting things on Amazon. We're thinking about new scents and flavors and what we're going to do. We'd actually started trying to sell them into local stores, to get him a little experience being told no by people. And one day it's like, hey, this is getting to be a lot of work. I think we should get some help. And, my friend, he needs some money. So what if we just hired him and paid him like, X dollars an hour? I was like, okay, that's cool. But let's work back through your profit margins, right? Let's work back through your product costs, your gross margin, and those kind of things. And then suddenly it hit him like, wait a minute, I would literally be giving him all of my profit. So suddenly he decided, you know what, I don't think I'm going to hire that friend because he's lazy and doesn't work very hard. I'm going to hire this other friend because he's hardworking and he'll take less money and I can make more money.
Well, now, were you on the periphery here, or did you give him that advice, or are you just glad that he was able to learn that organically?
I kind of let it flow, right? There were so many different things that the kids got out of this. You know, one morning my son's like, "Hey, Dad, I noticed that now I have a lot of money. A different kind of girl wants to talk to me at school." And I was like,
Life
"That's
lesson.
interesting. Tell me about that." And he was like, "Well, you know, there's these couple of girls and they never even spoke to me. And now they found out I have a lot of money and now they're all about me." And I was like, "Well, that's interesting, son, because now we have to have the gold digger conversation, right? A conversation you're not usually used to having with your 9 or 10-year-old or your 11-year-old." And suddenly here we were. There were so many cool things that came out of this little business. And I think as a dad, that's super important because you want to create the early reps and the early failures for your kids, right? You want to give them a chance to go out there and do things and mess up and hose things and lose money and things blow up in their face when they're young and they can rebound from it, right? You know, like for instance, my son, we would go into stores to try to, but you know, we were doing a lot online and selling on Amazon. We're like, well, how could we expand our business? And the kids came up with, well, what if we go to some of the local like spas and salons and things like that, and maybe they'll let us sell our product, right? So we hit up this store in the local downtown, and the lady loved him, right? "Oh, this is great. This is perfect. This goes perfect with all the things that we sell. You're in," right? So we come back a couple of weeks later, and the guy is there, and he says, "Hey, you're gonna have to get all your stuff out of our store." And my son's like, "What? Like, what do you mean? Like 2 weeks ago, you were all about us. We sold out. You know, you're making money. We're making money. What's the deal?" He goes, "Well, one of our other suppliers came in and they saw your product and they want you out of here, or they're pulling their product, and they sell a whole lot more in our store than you do. So you're out."
Another life lesson, another business lesson.
And so we walk outside the store, and this is really cool, Patrick. My son goes, "So we just got strong armed." I'm like, "Yeah, we got thrown out by a bigger supplier." I was like, "What do you want to do about it?" He goes, "Well, we're just going to go in all these other stores next time and sell there instead of his. And then we're going to go back and tell him about it." And I was like, "Yes." Right.
Where did that end up, and what was the result?
Well, we ended up selling in a few other stores. It was kind of interesting because to kind of play this out a little bit. So this went out over, I don't know, 3, 4, or 5 years, something like that, right? Made pretty good money, especially for kids that age. But eventually they got to a spot where they didn't really need any more money. See, one of the things we've got going on with the kids nowadays is they don't need as much money as we did, right? At least to live at home with mom and dad, right? What did we do with all our money? We went out partying, we bought cars, we had stereos, we bought four-wheelers, we went and did experiences, we went and did stuff, right? Well, what do? They hang out, they game, they play with each other online, they're constantly talking with each other, they stay at their houses, and they have a better gaming system, a better movie system, anything that they can go out, it's a whole lot cheaper. They basically can stay at home and eat mom and dad's food and have a good time and hang out with all their friends, right? So to me, they don't go out and do as much stuff.
Did you require them to, did you kind of require them to save some money? I say require, encourage them to save their money, or did they just learn that too as another lesson that grew out?
No, I think that's a big one, right? So what we did is we sat down and we came up with a percentage-based system. The big thing I taught them in one of the first books I got them was Richest Man in Babylon. And it talks about how you need to pay yourself first, right? And I think it's probably the most important lesson that you can teach your kids. Whatever you bring in, a portion of it should go to you first, right? For your future, for your investment, to put money into yourself, all those kind of things. So that was the first thing I did was whatever we make, we're going to put a portion of it in our investment fund. And our investment fund is going to be different than savings, right? Savings is for poor people. Okay. Savings is for like an emergency fund, but your investment account is your money, your soldiers, your things that make you more money, the things that make you money while you sleep. That was the big thing I was trying to push.
Did they start to look at this, Zane, like a bit of a game? I mean, you say they're kind of gamers. Did they realize, hey, we have the props, we have all the cool stuff. What are we going to do with these pieces? And they then started to assemble them. Is that what I'm kind of hearing you say?
100%. I mean, you can literally gamify all of it, right? Where they get their badges and they level up and they do all those kind of things. And I think that's kind of the cool part as a parent and as an entrepreneur parent was trying to set up those little challenge gates, whether they knew they were there or not, to try to get them to see why it was important and what they were doing. And kind of, like the lesson of I probably should have let him hire his buddy first, and then he could have seen how he didn't perform very well and he took all of his profits. I probably should have let that one go through.
As a dad, that's a tough one, isn't it? Do I give this advice? Do I hold back and let them learn the lesson on their own?
Well, for me, so I grew up and ran construction crews when I was young and spent a lot of time with a lot of other people. I've been all over the world, met a whole lot of different people. And to me, one of the things I wanted to do with my kids was create a series of controlled crashes, right? To me, and one of the things I teach as a coach, as a teacher, I teach at local university, I coach basketball. I need you to fail, and I need you to fail really fast and really often, because that's where we learn, that's where we grow, right? So to me, I wanted parenthood to be about creating those controlled crashes where they can fail miserably, but not hurt themselves permanently. Does that make sense? So you don't want them to end up in jail, but you don't mind them losing all their money.
Yeah, that's right. Did you have occasions to learn those lessons from your dad? And a segue or a tag onto that is, how has your own experience with your dad influenced how you parent?
Oh, massively. And we can go in a couple of different directions here. So my dad was a massive workaholic. My dad worked in construction. The only time I saw my dad was if I went to work. That was one thing. And let's just go down that path for a second. That was one thing I never wanted to happen with my kids. And here's a great piece of advice for dads. Okay. When your kids are 0 to 4, they need to know you exist, but you don't really have to be there, right? Not 24/7, not all the time. So like if you just had a child that was born and you're on some path to build a business or be successful, you've got a little bit of runway still, right? By the time they hit 4, you need to be there. You got to be there every day. 4 to 14 and 16, maybe 17 for girls, you got to be there. You got to be available. You got to coach the teams. You got to go to the scouts. You got to help them with their small businesses. You got to be there for those breakfast lessons and those dinner lessons. You got to really imprint upon them, what the code of your family is about. What are your core values of your family? What are the things you want to imprint them on them? Yeah. Because that's the important time that you got to be there.
Yeah, it's really, really intriguing to hear that. I have had created a question for you as a CEO and founder. How do you intentionally show up for your kids, even on the busiest days? And it sounds like you might tell me, well, it's all woven together. I'm there and I'm assisting them.
I'll expand upon what I was saying there, Patrick. So when your kids are little, 0 to 4, they need to know dad's around. They need to know you're there. If your partner's a caretaker and is taking care of them and all of that's handled super cool, you can go work, you can travel, you can build the business, you can do those kind of things. Now, for me, if you look at the growth curve of my engineering business, I basically got it up and going where it was making a little bit of money. And then from the time my kids were 4 to 14, it literally stagnated. It just kind of, I set it up where I could come in at 10 and leave at 4 if I needed to. I could make enough money to keep life going and keep those things. But what was cool was when they started hitting about 13 to 14 and they don't need you anymore. They do, but they're not excited about dad being around anymore. Now you can get back to work. So now you can see the growth company or the growth curve of my company has taken off now that my kids have gone from 13 to now my oldest is 22, I believe.
Okay. Well, I want to ask you, how do you balance ambition and presence, especially when your work demands long hours and travel? And you've kind of answered that. Let me add to that. Did you create occasions in your life as a successful entrepreneur where you built your businesses around your need to be a present dad? Did that happen, or was it the other way around? Or can you talk to that?
Well, I didn't want to be my dad, where the only way that I could ever see him was if I went to work, where work was everything, and it didn't matter. He wasn't there for ball games. He wasn't there for that stuff. Even as a grandfather, he saw my oldest son played basketball from 2nd grade until he made the high school team. And my dad never saw a game. Think how ridiculous that is, right? So for me, I was never going to allow that to happen. Now, the thing that I would suggest to dads is to build out the understanding in your family of what your family why is. Okay. So make sure you're constantly talking to your partner and your kids about what's going on and why you're doing it. Okay. So if dad's the main breadwinner and he's trying to build a company, and this company is going to support the family and maybe become the thing that gets the family name over the top, right? Maybe you become the one for your family. If that's the goal and that's what everything is set up to do, then everything in the family should try to support that as much as possible, right?
And you speak that, you let them know that that's kind of the plan.
100%. And it's you also have to let them know, hey, I'm there for your games, but this particular game, I need to meet with a customer, and this customer could double the size of our company, which would be a massive help for our family because we could make a lot more money and dad could eventually work even less and spend more time with you. What's that kid going to say?
And they know what that's about because of the soap business that you helped them start. So that's not a mystery to them. Okay. Well, I want to ask you this. How do you navigate the tension, to the extent that there is any, and there might not be for you, between high performance in business and high pressure, or high presence at home? Or if you like, what does being there actually look like?
Well, it's tough, and I think here's my answer that I've found over these years. If I was to give this back to myself, 15 or 20 years ago, time is not the answer. It's being effective, and it's a big thing that I put in my companies and for my kids. Are you busy or are you effective? Right. One of the things I noticed when I started spending a little more time with my kids is I cut my work hours. Right. I went from like 65 hours a week or 70 hours a week to 35 or 40. And what was interesting is my performance actually went up because when I was there, I was very present. When I was there, I had to get things done. So I could get 8, 9 hours of work done in 3 or 4 hours because I knew I had to, because I'm coaching a game that night and I'm not going to let everybody down. Right. So it's kind of interesting in that things will use up the time that you give them. Right. If you give a task 4 hours, it'll take you 4 hours. If you give it 90 minutes, you'll bang it out in 90 minutes. So I think that's kind of the balance and the answer to what you're saying there, Patrick.
I love what you're saying. I'm hearkening back to a time when I operated an after-school program years and years ago, a couple decades ago, and I was in charge, basically, almost an entrepreneur, left pretty much to do what I wanted. And one of the tasks was marketing, which I really enjoyed doing. And it would get to be 3:30, but it's time for me to leave to go home and pick up my young son, who was 3. And I would get this horrible feeling in my breath. Oh, geez, I want to keep working. Yes, I want to pick up my son, and I want to, once I make the 40-minute drive, it's all good. But the initial feeling is, oh my gosh, now I have to stop working, and it was a real pain. So, have you experienced that? Did you cure yourself of that? If so, and how did you manage any of that angst and pain? If I am an ambitious, driven person at work, and my God, I've got the stuff I've got to do, and I'm always trying to be the best dad I can be. How do you deal with that? Or how did you address that?
So a couple of tips and a couple ideas just based on experience, right? So you have to understand and think about it. I'm an engineer, right? What am I trained to do? I'm trained to find problems with stuff. I'm trained to find what's wrong, right? So for me, I was constantly looking at what I was doing wrong or what I wasn't getting to or what I didn't get done or what I had messed up or who I had failed, right? And the thing is, if you're a hard charging entrepreneur, type A, going to take over the world kind of person, not only at work, but at home with your kids, you're always failing, right? There's no way you could ever satisfy everyone and handle it all because you always think you could have done a little bit more, right? Mm-hmm. So it hit me one day. I was on a call with a bunch of other entrepreneurs and I was really beating myself up. And they're like, why? Like, dude, you literally are crushing it. And I asked myself, what if I gave myself some credit? And in that moment, my life changed because my entire world flipped completely, Patrick. It went from negativity and what I didn't get done to positivity in what I did get done. And then I began to realize that if I began to compartmentalize these things, right? If I began to create done for the day lists instead of task lists, or I'm going to work 8 hours. If I said I've got these 1 or 2 major things to get done and I got them done, then anything else I did was a bonus, right? And then if I had things in my family life and for my kids that were the same, hey, I'm going to coach this game. Hey, we're going to get ready for this Boy Scout trip. Hey, we're going to learn about business and work together on money. I began to block those things in my schedule, and those were unchangeable, right?
Amazing.
If you notice, when we first started this call, I said, hang on a second, I've got to finish something for work, because I gave them till basically 4:05 today, Eastern time. I'm done for the day. It doesn't matter what's left. Our best customer could call right now and I'm not available. Not going to happen. I'm committed to what I'm doing right now. I'm committed to doing something with my kids tonight. And nothing will change that. I will come back tomorrow and I will absolutely be the best I've ever been, right? But in those moments, you have to commit. And the key is be present. Like wherever you are, be present. If you're there with your kids, put your phone down, turn the email off, make it go away. And then you also have to teach your kids that, hey, if dad's at work, unless someone's on fire or going to jail, don't bother him because he needs to work because he's committed to you tonight. So you see how those all go kind of hand in hand, Patrick? You've got to give yourself credit. You got to compartmentalize.
I do. And I'll say what I don't see, and I guess I don't see you walking 8 or 9 steps in front of your children on your phone with when your children were younger and them tagging along behind you trying to catch up. Or if it did happen, you looked at that as something where you corrected it. You strove to correct it.
No, 100%. You've got to be present where you are. And one of the coolest things you can do, so once your kids hit the age that they've all got phones, make sure you have family dinners and go out for them, right? And stack up everybody's phones in a nice big pile. And the first person to touch their phone has to pay for dinner.
I like that.
Okay. Now, dinner's really expensive nowadays with inflation, right? I mean, you go to Five Guys, it's $30,000.
No, that's good. That's good. Well, what would you say are what each of your children likes to do with you today when they're with you, and when you have time to, not when you have time, but in your day-to-day life, what do they like to do with you? And you can take them each individually if you like.
All of mine are older now. I've got my 2 boys, and then I remarried and picked up 3 more kids. So I've got everything from 17 to 22, 3 boys, 2 girls. So I think the key to that is just making sure you do something. We committed as a family and for the kids that school was first. And then if their grades were good, they could play a sport. And then we wanted them to do something else that was a group activity that was a little more team learning centric. So like my boys pick scouts, right? Girls maybe might go with dance or scouts or whatever, 4-H, those kind of things are all available. So we as a family committed to those things. So we always put in the time. And the big thing we told our kids is if you commit to a team, you're going to practice, you're going to the games, you're not going to quit. Like you'll finish it out. Now, at the end of the season, if you hated it, you don't have to do it again, right? We're not going to force you to play baseball your whole life if you don't like it. But if you commit to a team, you got to finish. So I think a lot of the things that we did were with them for that. But a couple other things I did, especially with my boys, like we take a little trip together every single year, just for a few days, and it's just us, me and the boys. We don't know where we're going. Sometimes we plan it at the last second. I've let the kids pick it and given them a budget, and I don't know what's going on until I show up, and we basically have always committed that time to each other, and I think that's important. So I think the answer to your question, Patrick, is what do I do with them? It's as much as I can, right? And it's, sometimes you got to fit into their schedule because they're working, they got girlfriends, they got a lot of things going on, and sometimes they got to fit into yours.
Yeah, that's so great. It doesn't sound like you really have to cherry pick which time you're going to spend. It's all woven together. And I'm envisioning some of the children coming along to the game you're coaching for your other child. And this is what we're doing. And if you're not part of that, we'll see you at dinner anyway, right? Or something like that.
Well, one of our family core values is to show up for each other. Like we show up for each other. That's our identity. So if any of them's like, oh, I'm busy, I got this going on. No, this is important. This is a graduation. This is a birthday. This is a something we need to be there to support our sibling. We're going. That's our identity, and that's what we do. So we've always tried to raise them that way. Another interesting one that I did, this is somewhat, I don't know if it's controversial, but I don't know if it's good advice, Patrick. So I decided with my two boys that if one of them was in trouble, that they were both in trouble. Okay.
Interesting.
Interesting to think about.
Now, how did that play out? Give us a few scenarios or vignettes.
So I never had to worry about them tattling on each other, right? And what was interesting as a byproduct of that, they always covered for each other and stood up for each other and took care of one another.
And you were quite fine with that outcome.
What's that?
You were okay with that latter outcome?
Yeah, the only real risk was I wouldn't find out about something that I needed to find out about.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of gave them that clarification as they got a little older and they got to the spot where they could get in some trouble. You know, like I said, my philosophy was controlled crashes, but save them from long-term, issues. So they had a few key things. If the cops are involved, Dad needs to know immediately. If something's going on, if you got accused of something at school, like any of those things that could permanently damage you, like drag me in immediately. That was another thing, like kids and drinking and driving and all those kind of things. They always knew that, hey, call me, I'm coming to get you wherever you are. Now, that doesn't mean you're not in trouble for what's going on, but I'll always be there for whatever you need. Because again, we don't mind you messing up, but we don't want to permanently, hamper anything you're going to try to do in life.
Excellent. All right, I've got a hypothetical question for you, Zane, completely hypothetical and imaginative here. Let's say you have been invited to speak to a group of 50 dads, and the dads have come to hear you speak about what it's like to be an involved dad and have a successful business, and just put it any way we want to there. And you've prepared 30 minutes of content and material for this. And so you're there, the dads are leaning forward in their chairs, but there's a, let's call it a tornado warning. We discover the fire department comes in and says, sorry, we have to evacuate the building, even though the tornado's, 250 miles away. Out of an abundance of caution, Zane, I'm sorry. You're
Sure.
not going to be able to say anything. And you say, hey, wait, I prepared some material here, but I see what you mean. For safety's sake, we'll go. And then one of the dads says, no, wait, we got to hear this guy or we're not leaving. And it all boiled down to you getting 30 seconds. What would you tell that room of dads in 30 seconds? Go.
That one's easy. Never judge your children by your frame because they will fail. So if I judge my 8-year-old by my experiences and who I am and how old I am, they're going to fail miserably. I've got to judge them by their frame. I've got to understand they're 8, they're 10, and they're not going to know what's going on. I think that's the biggest thing with adulthood is don't assume they know everything you know, and don't lambast them for not knowing things that they couldn't possibly know. Judge them by their frame. That makes
Awesome.
sense? Do you want a follow-up question?
It makes really good sense. Yeah, go ahead and follow that up with an example.
I mean, like I was saying, you come in and your kid drops his bowl on the floor, right? He smashes a heirloom that has been handed down in your family for 100 years. Okay. If you had done that, maybe you fuss at yourself. They're 6. It's a bowl. It's going to be okay. Right?
Yeah.
Let them learn the lesson. Hey, that sucks. We probably should have informed you of what that was and been clear that it was super important so that then you could protect it. And then anything out in the world, you don't, if your kid says something or messes up and you immediately attack them and get really negative with them, what's going to happen? They're not going to talk to you anymore first. They're definitely not going to tell anything that they messed up, right? And so I think that's another kind of part of that. Like if you can celebrate their crashes and talk about how they can learn from them, I think that would help as well. So again, judge them by their frame, where they are in life and what's going on and what they know, and then celebrate those extreme crashes.
That's, I can honestly say I've never heard that before from a dad talking about parenting. Celebrate those crashes. We always try to, we sometimes try to paint things pretty rosy, but celebrate the crashes. Awesome.
I do that one with my students. I talk to them a lot about, I need you to fail so spectacularly that they name it after you, right? Because that's when you're really going to learn something. And just a cool story here, Patrick. So I was teaching robotics courses, and it was kids in mechatronics. And I got a call one day from a girl, and she said, I did it. I did it, Prof. Zane, I did it. I got it named after me. Do you remember the little automated robot that took the football out for the halftime or for the kickoff of a Super Bowl a few years ago?
Kind of vaguely. I think I might have seen a picture.
It was like FedEx or something like that. Anyway, this autonomous robot took the football out for the kickoff. Well, the cool thing is the night before, she had crashed it in the wall, and her boss made her sign her name where they had broken the fender on it. So her name is literally on this robot that was on the Super Bowl that everyone in the world saw.
So she did it. She became famous, and it was validated.
100%. Like, don't Veronica this, right? Well, now everybody knows you. They know you're human. They know you can fail and all those kind of things. And I'll take that up a notch. This is a cool one that dads could do as well. This is something I did as a professor. I made sure in every single lecture that I had with students that I messed something up. Maybe I jacked up a word. Maybe I misspelled something. Maybe I messed up a formula. And then I would correct it because I didn't want them to thinking that this person on a pedestal teacher was perfect, right? Because we're not. We're humans. We mess up all the time, right? We should understand that, accept that, and celebrate it.
You invited them to catch you. That you invited them to catch you having made a mistake.
Or I would catch myself and go, hey, that was dumb. That was literally the stupidest thing I could have ever said on earth. What would be a better way to say that?
And do you offer that to your children? Do you give them the opportunity? You offer those things. Hey, I made a mistake. This is what I did.
Well,
get this.
The thing is, nowadays, we don't really have a choice, Patrick, because they can fact check us in about 100th of a second, right? I remember my kids getting on to me one day. No, Dad, Magic Johnson was MVP in 1984, not 1985. Like, dude, I didn't have an electronic thing in my hand to check everything. Like, it's going to happen anyway.
Wow.
So, like, embrace it. Like, lean into it, right? Be the dad that messes up and falls down the stairs and does dumb stuff all the time. The kids will love it. They'll have a blast with it. It also helps them understand that they're allowed to mess up too, right? Again, if you celebrate those disasters and then figure out how you could learn from it and come back better the next time, it's so much better for their life. They will tell you everything that's going on at that point, right?
I love that. Love it. Yeah, it's just so refreshing to hear. It's such an interesting perspective. What else would you tell us about fatherhood in your experience? Because that was the last real question I have for you. Anything else you'd care to share?
I think the big ones are, being there for those age spans, that 4 to 14, and then probably 16 for girls. Messing up as much as you can, I think, is super important. And then this is a really tough one. So I've had this conversation with several of the kids. There's spots where as a dad, you've got to step in and be a dad. You got to be the bad guy. You got to be the one that says, this is how it's going to happen. You got to be one that holds them accountable. And the way I've done that with a couple of my kids, and there have been some spots where it was pretty bad, right? I mean, these are potentially life-changing bad disasters. And, I really had to stop them, hold them accountable. And the thing that I told each of them was, I don't mind losing you to save you. That's how much I love you, right? That's how important you are to me, right? I don't mind being the bad guy and having you blame me for everything that's ever happened bad in your life if it helps you achieve what you're trying to achieve, because that's how much I care about you. How's that?
That's really beautiful, Zane. That's what that is.
Because sometimes you've got to be the one that says no. You've got to be the one that keeps them from doing the thing they don't need to be doing. You've got to be the one that says, no, you're not going over there. You're not hanging out with that person. You're not going to do that thing. Give me your phone, hand me your car keys, like whatever it is. And you're going to be unpopular with the age focus group in your house, right?
And maybe for quite some time,
And that's okay. right?
That's okay with you.
Again, I was in a spot with one of my kids where it was about to go off the rails, and I said, no, I'm going to be the one that steps in here, and I don't mind you blaming me for the rest of your life and saying it's my fault if it keeps you from making this disaster, because I don't mind losing you to save you. And I think that's a big thing for dads. Like you got to read the room, you got to read and know what's going on. And there's spots in your role that are tough and that are hard, and you can't be their friend sometimes, and that's okay. And they got to understand that too.
And it's not your priority to be your child's friend. Is that what I hear you saying?
Well,
that implied?
you don't put that first, right? Because you're a dad first. Your goal is to get them to a better spot in life, right? Your goal is to teach them how to negotiate this world that we're in and figure out how to find their place in the world and what they want to do and who they want to be with and what their why is and all those kind of things, right? That's your job as a dad. So don't neglect your job trying to be their friend, right? Dad first, hopefully friend as well, right? And the thing is, and I think we've all experienced it, right? Your dad is super, super smart till you're about 7 or 8, and then he's a complete dumbass till you're about 25, 26, and suddenly he's smarter than he's ever been, right? And then when you hit the 40, 50, you're like, wow, that dude really knew what was going on.
Let's hope that's the case. All right. Well, even if it isn't, rather lose you to this situation now and to save you in the long run. So
100%. Well, and the other is dads just understand that they don't come with an instruction manual, and you're going to get lots and lots of advice, and everybody's got an opinion, but it's ultimately up to you to decide what needs to be done. And I think if you can come back and build out a couple of those core philosophies, like if you can build a few core values of your family and then always have those to stand on, that'll help you, right? It also gives you the excuse sometimes where you need to be the bad guy. You're like, no, one of our core values is this. We can't do that, right? So sometimes it can help you escape. For me, I only had to pull because I'm a dad, and I said so only a couple of times. I got logic trapped a few times by my kids, and my only way out was, well, I'm the dad, and I say so. Try not to do that as much as you can. Try to have some philosophy behind it or some core value of your family or something that this is who we are, and we don't do that. I think that would help.
And it doesn't have to be ChatGPT proof every time, does it?
I encourage dads to lean into that. Teachers, schools, employers, all of it. Use every resource possible. I mean, one of the things I did as a teaching at university is I helped the kids set up a Discord server that the professors could not get on so that they could share information about classes. I wanted them to crowdsource, right? Because that's how we work in the real world. So why don't we go ahead and start doing that now, right? Help each other, work together. The cool thing is these young guns nowadays, 3 of them working together can outwork 7 or 8 of us because they're so good at connecting and handing stuff off and working together as a team and communicating quickly over various forms and devices. They're so good at that. Why don't we lean into that, right? Why don't we use all of our resources? I've shown every one of my kids how to use ChatGPT to write their resume, write a cover letter. Several of them have gotten jobs because of it. We're constantly writing business plans. If we try to figure out, hey, how's this restaurant we're sitting in make money? We'll sit there and build out the whole business plan for it. Well, how many people do they need to bring in? Well, how much does a burger cost? Well, how many employees do they have? What do we think the rent is? We'll basically build those things out. So I would encourage you to push your kids to use these AI resources as much as possible.
Awesome. Zane Pucylowski, thank you. Thank you.
Anytime, Patrick. Thank you for having me on. I do want to say that I respect and appreciate greatly what you're doing. So let's give you some credit as well. It's cool to put some things out there for dads because, like I said, kids don't come with instruction manuals, and everyone can tell you all the things you're doing wrong. But if you have a few of us out here trying to tell you what you're doing right, I think that would be very helpful. So we appreciate you greatly as well.
Oh, thank you.
For you, Roman, you've got a young kid, right? All right. So here's my advice for dads with younger kids. One of the best things you can do is have a friend like me who will send you the stack of Dr. Seuss books, right? And then what are you going to do? You're going to get them out, and every single day you're going to read. right? You're going to read to your kids even before they're born, right? Just start reading to mom's belly and just work your way forward. And it's back to what we were saying a minute ago, Patrick. You were saying, how do you weave these things in with all these other things going on? If you can't find 30 minutes at night to spend a few minutes with your kids and read to them before bed, you have 168 hours in a week, dude. Like, come on, make it important. Half-hour day is not going to kill you. It'll actually recharge you, and you can go back and work all night if you need to. But that's so important. And, Dr. Seuss books are really hard to read, which is why I like to give them to new dads, because then the dads are messing up in front of the kids, and the kids love it and have a good laugh about it. When you're trying to tweedle beetle battle and, one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish, and all that kind of stuff, and you can't say any of the words, and you get your tongue twisted and all these kind of things, and they get to laugh at dad, it just makes the whole world better for them.
Oh, that's so great. There's the early literacy enhancement component, of course, and the parent engagement aspect, and so much more, as you pointed out, so much more.
I think you've got to make education exciting, and you've got to reward it greatly. Whether you pay your kids to read books, or whether you create little adventures of chasing down pieces of information, or I like to do this one, especially if the kids are arguing. If my kids are arguing about something, halfway through the argument, I will stop them and make them switch sides.
Oh, interesting.
Right? Oh, we do this at my company as well. Everyone at my company absolutely hates it until they do it a couple of times. And they're like, this is the coolest exercise ever. Because you want them to be able to express the opinions of others and understand their points of view also, right? It's back to that thing I was saying a minute ago about judging them by their frame. You got to teach them the same thing. Like, you got to judge people by their frame. You got to understand where they're coming from.
Do you see an actual aha moment when they realize, boy, that perspective is actually pretty spot on? Or do they just kind of lower their tone and stop talking? How does that
No,
play?
I think it's really cool if you exercise this, and it can be with your kids, it can be with coworkers, it can be with someone, your significant other. When the other person realizes that you're hearing them, that is kind of an aha moment in the conversation, because then you can start to get to the truth. Then you're no longer worrying about being heard because you've been heard. Now you've got to work together to figure out what the actual truth is, because you both have an opinion.
Yeah, it's like paraphrasing on steroids, in a way.
Yeah, 100%. I think you said X. And, the first couple of times that won't go well. They'll say no and punch each other in the face, and that's okay. That's another one. If you have boys, I had a couple of times where they would be in a massive argument on the way home, and then I would stop the car in the garage and I would tell them, okay, you guys stay in here and you don't come out until it's settled. And they might come out with a couple of bruises and some scuffed up collars and things, but they eventually learned that I was going to make them work it out one way or the other. And a lot of times I was going to make them trade sides. So it really made them kind of begin to understand each other a little bit more.
Very interesting. So, Zane, I'm kind of curious. I'm trying to grow this, the channel, and do more and do more interviews. I don't know that this one can be topped ever. and so it just lives on its own. But what advice would you have for me in terms of just as with your experience base to kind of roll to expand and reach out?
I think the biggest stuff I can give you here, Patrick. So for many years, my personal directive was to change a life every day. And I made sure I did it, right, every day.
Change a life every day.
What's that?
Did you say change a life every day?
My personal directive was to change a life every single day. Now, it might be that guy at the counter who you could tell was having a terrible day, and I just got him to smile and told him a joke. Or it might be I helped a dude figure out how to start a business. Whatever it was, I changed a life every day, and I made sure I did it. And then it hit me one day that that's probably not big enough. Like, I need to do more. And so my personal directive now is I create people who create people. So I think that's the one thing that I could encourage of you, Patrick, is don't try to get your message out. Try to create the next messenger. Try to create the next Patrick. Who's the next person that can carry this on beyond me? Who's the disciple that can preach it to a crowd bigger than I ever could? I think that's the thing that would help you the most, is don't look at your reach. Look at who you teaches as your qualifier.
Wow. Thank you for that. Roman, any questions that come to mind from you that Zane might shed some light on?
No, you guys nailed it, honestly.
Roman's still trying to process the week he spent with me in Panama, 5 or 6 years ago, was it, Roman?
I've heard some stories, but I didn't hear the whole picture.
That poor kid. Yeah, he was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and by the end of it, he wasn't sure of anything. So, but he's done pretty well for himself.
And that was a positive, right, Roman?
Absolutely.
To have reached that epiphany?
We're getting there.
I think the big one, Patrick, is to understand that your message is important and needs to be done and do not be stopped. But also understand that you are not big enough to be the one to do it all. Mm-hmm. Do you see how those two can kind of go together, right?
Mm-hmm. Wow, I just feel like I heard some dad advice, and I did. That's really good.
Yeah, there's lots of cool dad advice there. I mean, I grew up young. I used to run construction crews when I was 12, 13, 14. I ran half my dad's business when I was 15 and 16. So I saw a lot of different stuff and learned from a lot of people and tried a lot of different ways. So, there's the thing is the world that we're in right now, demographically, we're about to have a lot less people than we used to have. So every single one of them is more important than they used to be, right? In the days of the boomers, no one helped each other because there were so many of them that they were competition to each other, right? Mm-hmm. I'm a Gen Xer. We're super tiny. There's none of us, right? And the kids coming behind us are smaller. We got the little group of them millennials. They got that little blip, but then we got nothing coming behind them. So every single one of these kids is important. So like when I see an employer who's like, oh, I'll just hire the next guy, there's not going to be a next guy. Like you got to figure out how to get something out of the one in front of you. So I think that's kind of every crowd you get in front of, Patrick, like what can I do to get one or two people going here? Because I need somebody. Everybody is important. And even if they're not perfect, and even if they're not going to do everything that I want them to do the way that I want it done, it's something, right? We need every single one of us. So I think that's a big point. And I think we got to get that into the kids. Like, they got to, that friend they don't like, they got to find something they like about them, right? Because we need them all working together to solve the world's problems, because there's so many things to do and so few of us to do it.
Well, I'm dying to say this, and it's just with all sincerity, Zane, thank you, Dad. Because it's very, very cool advice. Thank you. Very useful. Thank you so much.
All right, brother. Well, good luck. When Roman accidentally deletes the video or messes up, or you guys need some more stuff, hit me up.
It sounds like we could start from scratch, and you have a well of information. And
we got lots of time and lots of stories and lots of people to help.
Let's do it again sometime, for sure.
Yeah. Love it. Get him some stuff out there, Roman. Cross it over through some of my stuff if you want to. And then, just get me a crowd to talk to, Patrick. Get me in front of some people. That'd be great.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Y'all be good. I'm going to the movies. I'll see y'all later.
All right. Bye.